I'll start off with you giving like an intro about yourself.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, so my name is Nicole Scott-Harris. I am a Newark, New Jersey based yoga instructor and registered dietitian nutritionist. Um, my entree into this wellness space um, is a second career. So I have a previous career where I was primarily working in government and politics and environmental advocacy. So now I no longer do that. I'm completely self-employed under my small business, Eco Empress Nutrition, Yoga and Wellness, which incorporates these various different aspects of my passions and expertise. So I'm trained to teach yin yoga, or that's the style that I specialize in, yin yoga in a style called Yoga Nidra. Also functional registered dietitian nutritionist, and I provide consultancy services in the area of sustainability and eco-conscious living, based off of my experience working in environmental advocacy and environmental justice policy development.
As you as getting into like, how could you say getting into like holistic health has changed your life, whether it be like for the better or for the worse?
Well, it's not that I got into it. I would say it's more that I got deeper into it. As a younger person, I'm now in my late 30s. So as a person in my early 20s, as I was coming of age and developing my own value system around how I wanted to handle my health and healing, I automatically gravitated to wanting to find natural remedies for things. So before I make a doctor's appointment, fortunately, we live in a digital age. I'm going to do some research on my own to see if I can find something natural that can help me alleviate whatever is going on in my body. So that was already sort of, I don't know if you want to call it Akashic or whatever, but that was already in me. And so this was just, I feel like me becoming more of myself. Because as a child, you're getting indoctrinated into a way of being. And in your 20s, you first get the opportunity to just kind of like test the waters on your own to see if that's the way you want to be. So, just more and more as I got into my late 20s, I'll tell you, I did a master's degree in political science, and I graduated when I was 25, 2000. I was going on 26 years old when I got my master's degree. And a year later, I decided to go back to school for nutrition because I was kind of just on autopilot as opposed to really tuning into really what I wanted to do and where my spirit was taking me as far as a career.
Do you feel like getting into this was like spirit led? Like you were, because it kind of sounds like that, because to be in like the political science, like working for the government and stuff, and then to like come and do yoga and stuff, you're not really, I wouldn't say they're like opposites, but in a way they kind of are. It's like, going into two different worlds. Do you feel like that was like spirit led?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So I'll tell you, a lot of people come into interest with yoga through a particular style. There's so many different styles of yoga, which is one of the things I definitely want to make clear early in this conversation. So many different styles. I really don't even have a number to tell you. If I wanted to say off the top of my head safely that I know, it's 10 plus styles of yoga, and that's probably not even close to the total number, maybe 30 plus. I'm not really sure. Styles of yoga. So when I first came to yoga as a practice, I was doing it for exercise. I was interested in maximizing my fitness. And this was a different way to do it. So where I lived, it happened to be a yoga studio and walking distance from where I was living at. And they had like a new student special. So the style of yoga I first started practicing just as a student was hot yoga. And a lot of people hear about hot yoga, a lot of people seeing in pop culture and different things like that. And it's very similar to the type of energy that you might exert or experience in a traditional workout setting, like aerobics or anything in the gym, you know, or high intensity training. So a lot of people come to yoga because they want to be physically fit. It's a deeper practice than that though. So, and actually hot yoga is, in my opinion, I don't even practice it anymore. It actually can be fairly dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, because it's sort of fast paced. And if you're not being mindful of your movements and trying to keep up with the class and not really paying attention to your form, a person can really do damage to themselves. But it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It just means that you need to have proper training and a teachers whose judgment you trust to be around, so that you're not hurting yourself. But when you're in big groups and big classes, that every teacher is not able to accommodate everybody. So if you're taking a class with a lot of people and you're trying to just keep up with the class, you can kind of hurt yourself. So I'll just say that like a lot of people came through yoga, through hot yoga, and through the popularity of hot yoga as an exercise, as a way to get fit, as a way to, you know, lose pounds quickly because it's in a heated environment, and blah, 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 all this other stuff. But yoga as a Sanskrit Indian term, it translates to union. And yoga is really about the union of breath and movement. It's really about the alignment of the energy in your body. And it's really about a balance of your emotional state. It really helps you from that aspect. And kind of like if you see people doing these hot yoga classes where they're trying to keep up and it's fast paced and it, you know, just trying to do the movements, that's not even really yoga anymore. Because if you're not synchronizing your movement with your breath and you holding your breath, trying to just keep up with the movements of that's not yoga anymore. But it's still exercise. It's just not yoga. So it's a lot of yoga styles like the one I teach that's more slow, more gentle, more what they call yin versus yang or yang, or yin is more the feminine principle, yang is more the masculine principle. Yin is more about surrender and receiving, yang is more about action and activation. And so I honestly believe people can get a lot more benefit from the styles of yoga that have less popularity and less knowledge, like the slower stuff, because they're already doing the fast stuff. If they jog, if they, you know, if they're in a gym, if they, you know, whatever they do, they're probably, if they're interested in fitness, they're doing something that's high intensity, but they're not doing anything to kind of balance out that other yin energy inside their body. So stuff like Tai Chi is also that yin energy. Cause you just, you know, I don't know how to do Tai Chi, but you see them, they move them real slow, deliberate, with balance and stuff like that. It's not about, it's about like centering, coming back to yourself, really increasing your awareness of being in your body, and less awareness, or being able to focus and your attention more in yourself and tune out more of the static. That's what I feel like yoga, when practiced over time and the right way, but for whatever style that you like, it eventually helps you to cultivate those kinds of characteristics And what you do on the mat translates to what you can do off the mat.
Mm.
A lot of times when I'm talking to people in my classes, so yin yoga is a style of yoga where most of the poses are either sitting down or laying down, and you hold them for 3 to 5 minutes on average. So this practice is about cultivating stillness and flexibility foremost. But while you're in the stillness, there's an aspect of challenge to the pose, and there's an aspect of relaxation to the pose. So the pose is only supposed to be slightly challenging, just to take you outside of your comfort zone, just so you're stretching your body a little bit outside of what you normally do. But it's not intended for you to be like in any kind of uncomfortable, excruciating pain. However, after 3 minutes or after a minute and a half, people sometimes have difficulty if they don't have any experience with stillness, staying in a pose, and some stagnant energy or pain that might be in their body might come to the surface or move as you're in this pose, because it's activating energy lines in the body, which they call meridians, nadis, all, different traditions have terminology for energy lines in the body. So when you're holding these poses and certain energy lines in your body are being activated, they are associated with certain organ systems. Each organ system is associated with certain emotions. So while you're in a pose, if it's activating a certain meridian line, it can bring up, bring out, and release stagnant energy in the body. Sometimes in classes, you get people who are crying, and they don't necessarily even sometimes know why they're crying. But it's just like it's stagnant energy that is being activated, is being released. And so in a certain way, it's trauma release. But when people are in those poses, a lot of times when I tell them, one of my favorite things, I'm always talking through my classes and giving people kind of like motivational speaking while they're in the poses. And I say, what your body can do and what your mind will tell you your body can do are two different things. So if you're in a pose and we get into the 2-minute mark and I want you to stay for 1 more minute, then I try and say something like that to help shift your thinking. Because a lot of times it is the ego, like, ain't no way I could stay in this pose, or they see me do it and they're like, my body can't do that. But then it's like, yes, your body can't actually do it, your own version of it. And also in my class, I use a lot of props, so which is tools that you can bring onto the mat to help the poses become accessible to you. So even just something as simple as having people lean forward maybe and try and put their forehead towards their, it's called like a butterfly position. I'm too high up for you to really see, but let's see. Having people try and lean forward like this in a pose like this. Some people are really tight, so I'll be telling them to lean forward and they like, this all they could do. But for me, I can actually put my face on my feet. So they see me do it, and they're like, oh no, I can't do that.
Right, it looks intimidating.
But when I bring the props, I bring it so that it's a block up to here so that they can lay their forehead and they're still stretching their body outside of this comfort zone, and they can sit there for 3 minutes like that. So the main thing is, like, this practice is accessible to anybody. I had somebody come to my class who had a leg amputation up to the hip and had a prosthetic leg, and I still was able to help him. So it's definitely accessible, and with the props, you can almost bring when I say anybody into a pose or a form. So just go back to like what your original question was. Was this a spiritual experience? Yeah, initially it was just about exercise, but the more I got into it, the more I learned about different styles, the more I got in tune with my own body. Certain messages came up for me to do other things. You don't always understand why you're doing it. You know, hindsight is 20/20 vision, but I think the more you get steeped in your spirituality, the more you get confident in your purpose and your passion, then you understand how the trajectory of your life, you know, led you a certain place. So definitely, I feel like it's a spiritual thing. That I feel, you know, we're here. This is our avatar. We're here on assignment. We have been given certain talents that we are, you know, whatever you believe about your own spiritual or religious understanding. I'm a student of universal law and a child of E5, but I refer to all different spiritual doctrine that I have found are universal laws. So you have to
Right.
atone for your talents. If you came here with certain things to leave and to share, and you don't, you know,
Gotta try again.
that's your business. That's your business. We see you next lifetime.
Right. You gotta try again. I think that's one, I'm learning a lot because really and truly, I didn't really know too much about yoga. So it's like one, I feel like I'm learning a lot. I'm just sitting here listening. And then two, on this part, for like anybody who's watching, especially this segment, I feel like it's so interesting how you could be sometimes even like you really think you're going one way and it's like, nah, you came here to do this. And it's like all of a sudden you'll get thrown into this because, you know, I do similar stuff, you know, with the holistic health thing. I was trying to be a photographer, videographer, like journalist person. And I don't like when I tell people the story how I started doing this, it was just so random. And then next thing you know, right before COVID, it's like I had a juice bar and I'm helping people lose weight and stuff. And COVID and stuff happened. I had to close it down, but it's like I would have never thought, you know, 3, 4, 5 years ago. But it's like when the calling happens, it's like you just
Exactly.
answer. Yeah.
Exactly. And so many different people keep getting put in your path to redirect you back to where he trying to, you know, I'm just using he as a personified pronoun, but where you trying to, where your purpose is actually steering you back to
where you're supposed to be, right?
Yeah, in alignment, right,
yeah,
for the highest. So definitely, and I'll share with you a spiritual opening that happened for me between that time when I graduated with this master's degree of political science and I made the decision to go back to school for nutrition, because it was really only when I tell you like 15 months, I was like, how did I just, you know, spend this $60,000 on this master's degree? And now I'm playing with this idea of going back to school. But my one of my close friends from undergrad, her mother ended up being diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. And after I finished my graduate degree program, the economy was trash. Like I had like a temporary job for like a campaign for about maybe like 4 months. And then I was laid off and I was on unemployment. And my friend's mother got diagnosed with cancer. And we live in New Jersey and in Newark. And the treatment center where her, the people around her were recommending for her to go for her treatment was in New York City. And so she needed somebody to drive her back and forth to the appointments. And I volunteered to do that because my, you know, it's my friend's mom. I wasn't working. This is one of my close friends. I really didn't know her mother well at that time, but I, you know, I had met her and I was just like, yeah, if she need a ride, I'm not doing anything. And I started driving her back and forth to Manhattan on the days when she had treatment. And she is a Ifa priestess. So at first she didn't even want to get this treatment. If it wasn't for her 3 daughters begging her, she wasn't going to go any kind of traditional route. But she ended up making the decision to go, and she had 6 months of treatment. And I drove her for about 5 months of her treatment. And I was just observing her, how she was taking care of herself as far as nutritionally, how she was taking care of herself spiritually, how much she enforced the boundaries around her peace, like to not let people aggravate her and different people in her home and stuff like that. And obviously we are having conversations because I'm spending like hours a day with her at this point. And so she's giving me her insights into life and spirituality and human behavior and all different kind of stuff. And it opened me up, you know. I'm sure something happened where my third eye was activated.
She might have been the one that was supposed to plant the seed.
Yeah, and she's still very pivotal in my development. And now she considers me a daughter. So anytime I'm in her home and she's having ceremonies or rituals, she introduced me to other people as her daughter. So, but it changed my life. It just changed my life. I knew I didn't want to be in that environment where she was, like the cancer treatment center, but I was just like, I gotta help in a different way. Like, because I grew up with this kind of like social justice mindset, and my grandmother's a public school teacher and she's very active, or she's retired now, but she was very active in her labor union and very active in local politics and stuff. And so that's how I got steered into that career path, because that's what was exposed to me. But then once I actually really started to see what she was doing for herself, I said, I feel like I can help people more by working with them and providing a different model for how they live and how they protect their body in their energetic fields, versus working for these crazy, I don't even know what you want to call it, corrupt.
You could use all the synonyms and they will work.
Crazy, corrupt, elusive. And I live in New Jersey. I live in northern New Jersey, so you know, we have bad political corruption. You know, Chris Christie shut down a bridge here over a political vendetta. He shut down a George Washington bridge. So we have a history here of all kind of just dirtiness, you know, dirty politics.
Oh wait, I thought you. Oh no, go ahead. Yeah. No, I was just gonna kind of add on to what you were saying with the like how she came and she planted the seed on your journey. I feel like it's interesting when you're able to look back, because like when you get thrown on the journey, it's like you're in it. But then once you're like, you know, driving the car when you're on the road trip, it's like you look back and you start seeing the people who was giving you directions the whole time to help you get to this point. Like, I remember when I was a kid and stuff, like my cousins and stuff were Rastas. And so as much as religious people I had like cousins that were Rastas, and I had cousins that were like 5%ers or Indonesian and stuff. So they was planting those seeds as a kid. The only thing was it was hard because they were also like in the street life. So it was hard to fully follow them, but they planted that seed. So when I got older, because I had a similar mind, you know, like the whole time I was in college and stuff, it's like fight the power and this and that, until you start to gain more of an understanding that's like, that's not really the method. I started to realize it's not the method that's going to be the most effective. It's like, it's like you're screaming into the air. But, you know, when I started doing this, I started feeling like I was able to really help people more. And it kind of angered me in a way, because it's like these things aren't as complicated or as spooky as they are made to seem. And it's like, these are the things that really help us, you know. As something as simple as like, I just want protection. It's like set up a little altar or something. It's like, to us, it's like the most scariest thing in the world, but it's like, those are the things that we used to do. And I feel like now we coming in a time where whatever programming or whatever like veil or whatever was over in our eyes, people with the internet, there's more people who are open to gaining an understanding of, you know, they call it ancient, but it really wasn't that long ago, of how we was, you know, living, you know, because, you know, these things were just a part of our everyday, like waking up and doing yoga. It's like, you know, you're supposed to wake up and stretch and stuff to free up the energy and stuff like that in your body. And that's another thing, you know, how you talked about how some people just do it for fitness, but it's like, you know, you start to learn about this stuff more. And it's like, man, the way that this will benefit
physical fitness, they limit it to physical fitness,
right, and not like the
mental fitness, spiritual fitness. It can help you with all aspects of it, but with intention and with as long as you're receptive to it.
Right. And that's another thing. I feel like when people get into holistic health, they only understand it from like the Dr. Sebi perspective. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it goes past, you know, just trying to lose weight and using herbs and stuff, because that doesn't really help you with like your traumas and stuff like that. You know, that'll just help you get healthy. That'll be the jump start. Your mind and stuff will start to work better. Your body will be healthier, but there's still those things that you may not be dealing with. And those are like constantly going to show up in your life. And those are going to be the roadblocks, you know, whatever that you're putting away. And another thing I was going to say, when you were talking about like that person who started crying in a class because they freed up that energy, that's another thing I'm learning about. It's like, you know, it's not even just that we're carrying this in our mind. It's like, this is energy that we holding on to like physically, and it causes like it causes physical disease. Sometimes you look it up, and this is kind of the real problem with Western medicine, aside from just like them giving you prescriptions. It's like no one's going to tell you that, you know, maybe your stomach is hurting because you're not like able to digest something, and that's like resulting in something in your aura. Like no one is, your regular doctor is not going to go to you and you know, get that deep. But that the problem,
they won't even tell you this much. Which I will mention, I like to tell people a lot of this from a standpoint of, they always call your gut your second brain, right? And there's a nerve on the back of your brain called the vagus nerve that goes from your brain actually to your stomach. And that's science. This is not esoteric. This is not spiritual. This is just science. That it's a nerve, a major nerve in the body that serves an important purpose that goes from your brain to your stomach, which means that's why people are so affected. Their diet is so affected by their emotions. It's a natural thing. So doctors will not only not tell you about the energetic symbolism of, you might not be able to digest something because you're avoiding trying to digest something in your life, right? They're not going to tell you that, but they also just won't even just tell you the science that, oh well, there is a nerve that goes from your brain to your stomach. I mean, that's within their purview, and they still won't tell you that because it's not going to make them money.
Right, because I used to make a lot of food related videos, like, you know, eat this for that, and then like my spirit shifted me to like, you know, you got to focus more on mental health, because I realized I've had clients that like lost 50, 60 pounds and backtrack, and I noticed in their backtrack was their emotional tie to the eating. You know, you're not just eating Chinese food just cause, you're not just eating bags of chips at 1 a.m. just cause. It's there's stress, there's emotional time, because we don't have a way to deal with it. We think yoga is evil. So what we do, we pick up chips instead. We think this is bad. So it's like we just binge watch TV instead. So it's like we are unaware of the healthy outlets, that we just kind of take on more unhealthy stuff because we're either afraid, or because we've been given misinformation, or we just have no knowledge of it. So it's like no one knows how to transmute the energy into something more positive. But to get into another question, were you about to say?
I just want to say something. I don't know how many of these questions we can go through because we're going to keep bouncing off each other, but
well, you answered a lot of them already, just in that first one. Yeah.
So I don't want people to get caught up in the terminology of yoga, right? That we have languages. I remember my professor, Dr. Zain Abdul of Rutgers, New York, telling us, and I took an anthropology class with him too, about how we have dead languages. And when you have dead languages, like he was always talking about like how what died with the language, right? Cures and different natural remedies and ideas and concepts and stuff like that. So yoga is just a terminology. Doesn't mean that yoga comes from India. Doesn't mean that it's exclusive to India, because that's been the language that's been allowed to become popularized. Yoga is the union of breath and movement. You see a lot of cultures do all types of rituals that have to do with the union of breath and movement. You see cultures all over the continent that do dance rituals, and I'm sure how they be moving and dancing and how long they doing it. If you don't synchronize a certain movement with inhale, a certain movement with exhale, you'll be passed out on the floor. I've also seen imagery of other traditions like villages in Africa doing poses that are yogic poses, but it's clear that these people are still living a very indigenous experience and they haven't had exposure or education from anybody from India
Right.
about what they're doing.
Right.
This is a part of their culture. You also see poses, for instance, there's a pose called Plow Pose that you always see inside the images of the hieroglyphs. Obviously, there's people out there now that have, what you want, if you want to call it, I guess, recovered a practice that's now being called Kemetic yoga that comes out of Egypt in the different poses that they see in the hieroglyphs. But obviously, that shows that yoga is just a word that has been allowed to be a label for a body science of unifying movement and of breath that have many, many different labels that we may not be aware of, or languages might be dead or just not accessible to us to understand that. So my loctician, she is a Black woman in her 60s, and her family on her mother's side were the members of the Moorish Science Temple in Newark. And she told me she remembers growing up, her and her sister, I talked to both of them, and they remember growing up and seeing their grandfather do headstands. I almost fell out the chair.
Yeah, so that's so interesting how people get lucky. When they get born into like the system. It's like when they don't have to grow up and go find it.
But they still don't do it because it's like, you know, if they think that was her mother's side of her family and her father's side was more Christian. So she got exposure to it. It definitely opened her third eye. She's definitely not like a traditional person in any sense, but it took her time to make that evolution. But I definitely think it's to her advantage that she was able to see it. I was really like, as a student of African American studies, I mean, I'm hearing this from her in my 30s, and I'm like, what? Your grandfather was in a Moorish Science Temple. They was teaching him to do headstands, and I said, that's yoga.
That's also what my cousin, he's like my mentor. He's a barber, and he's in the nation. He's always like, yeah, what you think the supreme wisdoms is? Because we don't see what they're doing downstairs. I'm thinking that everything is just, you know, they just walking around with the papers and stuff, but it's like that. He's like, but that's not even nothing. He would always be like, that's not nothing special. He's like, that's what we used to just do. Like that's just a part of life. He's like, meditate. He's like, we didn't wake up and pray 5 times a day. We meditated 5 times a day. He's like, when you start to break it down, spirituality really is just like a science, because he'll be talking about, you know, how they face the sun, but then they start getting real technical when it's like, nah, because the energy from the sun is coming with a magnetic force at this time of day. So that's why we're facing the sun. Like, we're not just doing it just because. It's like, oh, wow.
Exactly. It's scientifically grounded. It's just that all of the religions have dumbed down the sophistication of, and when my godmother told me that, the lady who I was telling out, so I was taking to treatment, and she was explaining to me about Ifa. She was like, it's a spiritual scientific system, not just you know, it's grounded in science. It's just if you don't understand it, me, for instance, I was never really a big hard science person. I was always a social science person. So for me to go into physics or quantum physics, all this stuff, like, but that's what when you start getting into it and how they know these things and how science is starting to really just start to pierce the surface of validating validating spiritual principles that human beings have been doing for, you know,
the beginnings
early civilizations. It's like, okay, now they're really starting to see, but it was never based on anything. It was always a sophisticated scientific system. It's just that the more we became animals of modernity, the less time we had to study and become in tune with nature at every level, whether it's growing our own food, whether it's, you know, spending time in a forest or wherever, or whether it's becoming more familiar with the cosmos.
Because I realize even like with astrology, and it's interesting that you said that how things are catching up, because like I started off with saying, you know, a lot of this stuff people call evil, but now I'll be seeing like a playlist on Tidal, and it's like the Aries season playlist. And I'm like, wow, this stuff is becoming more and more trendy. And it's not that it shouldn't. It's really like, I realize like the astrology, like the Astro Girl, that's what they call themselves. It's like, they're almost like the real meteorologists. They're supposed to be, it's like they read the stars and it's like, okay, you know, we're going into this season, we're going into this time. You might want to focus on this. You might not want to do that. Aside from the people doing general, like, oh, Virgo, you're going to get money. Or, you know, the people really like, you know, okay, as a
looking at the collective energy.
Yes, yeah, as a collective, that's exactly what I was about to say. As a collective, we need to do this and that. And you can really spot the difference between the real and the people who's just, you know, skimming through, because I'll see and I'll be like, okay, that kind of aligns with what I have going on in life. And I like that it's becoming more free, because it's like, this is what's important. If people knew like, oh no, don't buy no car right now. We're not in no season of nothing new. We're in the season of, you know, holding on to things. Exactly. just for example. And it's like when you go buy the car, and it's like things go wrong. It's like because we didn't know, but that was always a thing. You know, that's why people are born with that natural gift. It's like everybody has a purpose and a place, you know, as even as something as, you know, being the, what was you said esthetician? I want to get the terminology.
Oh, my loctician.
Yeah,
my loctician. Instead of saying beautician, I say loctician. But.
Even someone as a loctician is like, that's a person working in your crown. You know what I'm saying? It's like everything is, everybody has a purpose that's like, you could go as deep and as divine as possible. And, you know, people thinking it's just some regular stuff, but it's a science. You know, there's math and angles, and it's like if they don't, when I was getting my hair braided, the person who did my braids, they're learning. And my cousin, he was showing her, because he's barber, he's showing them like, you know, you got to have this angle and you got to have this. And I'm like, damn, I didn't even realize it was such a such a science. I'm just getting my hair braided, you know. But you've kind of answered a lot of these, but I'll just touch on them so it could be like something definite. All right, so how does a beginner get into yoga?
I really feel like beginners should start with whatever resonates for them. Like, because it's, once you start one style of yoga, whatever style you feel like that you've come across that resonates for you. A lot of people was getting into Kundalini yoga. Kundalini yoga is also called tantric yoga. It's about the Shakti and divine feminine, and moving the Kundalini up from the base of your spine all the way up your spine to your crown, to your, you know, to your higher self, and a part of ascension. But Kundalini is not easy. It looks like it is. It's like mostly sitting down, but the breath exercises and the movements are intense. I've taken a few Kundalini classes. Like I could really count on one hand how many Kundalini classes I've taken, and I've been practicing yoga since 2008. Doesn't mean that I don't think it's a good practice. It's something I would benefit from doing more of too. But people are getting into that a lot, but you might have to be in a Kundalini class where you're sitting down in a cross-leg position, but they tell you to hold your hands like this, and like what I'm doing is putting my hand up and down, like both hands. You might have to do it like something like 2 minutes, and you might, and like with a breath, and it's doing something in your body. Some kind of way it's aligning the energy. You know, I'm not educated enough to really speak on it with any authority, but it seems easy. So people might look at it and like, oh, I want to try that first. It's my first style of yoga. I teach something called yoga nidra, which is translates into yoga sleep. So you really lay down with a light blanket over you the whole practice. It's usually a 45-minute practice. You can find them recorded online for shorter times, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever. And it's a guided visualization technique. People fall into a light or deep sleep while they're doing it, but the instructor is talking the whole time and almost shifting the energy in their body through their subconscious, through subconscious reprogramming. And so that's also a form of yoga. So yoga nidra could be how they start. They can start with something called restorative yoga, which is a style similar to what I teach. But restorative yoga really has no element of challenge to it. It's all about relaxing. It's all about just letting go and relaxing. If a person is pregnant and they're having discomfort in their body, prenatal yoga, that's a style of yoga I definitely intend to be trained on within the next 2 years. Because women, this is a whole nother conversation we can get into about what happens when women go into these hospitals pregnant, and especially Black women, but all women. In the profit motive around forcing people into C-sections and stuff like that. You're doing yoga that last trimester of your pregnancy, you probably gonna have no problems delivering that baby by the time it's time for it to come out of your body. I've seen a yoga teacher who was pregnant teach until maybe 1 or 2 weeks before her due date. So it definitely helps prepare your body for all different kinds of things. So yeah, I just think people should do whatever feels accessible to them and resonates for their spirit. So it's a lot of different styles that are more friendly to a beginner who has no experience doing a lot, or who is not, we'll just call them deconditioned and not really fit. So they might want to do something a little bit more gentler. But if a person that's more into the gym, always lifting weights and always doing this, they might initially, what might attract them is the more fast-paced, more physically strength training styles of yoga. But then hopefully by them starting that, they start to get exposure to another style that helps them come into more of a yin style, so that they're doing something a little bit more that's a downshift instead of an upshift. But yeah, so many different styles. Just try. Almost every single yoga studio has new student introductory specials, so you can come in at a lower price point without making a long-term commitment, and just, try some stuff out, ask some questions, look on YouTube, all of that stuff. I did want to go back to something you were saying about getting people to be more in tune with nature and the cycles of nature, because that's one of my foundational focuses of my business, called Eco Empress Nutrition, Yoga and Wellness. And my tagline is, your body is your first temple, the earth is your second. And I had a foot injury, so I was not working for a year, but as of last July, I started back working, and I started doing yoga events under my own business instead of just doing classes in a studio and renting out spaces and having events. So the first one I did was for Winter Solstice 2021, actually on the winter solstice. And I briefly introduced the reason why I, convened all women here in this space on this date, and kind of gave them some baseline information about how they can tap into the energies that are happening for us right now and capitalize on it, based on some lectures that I've been listening to for a few years from Dr. Tony Browder. So, that's basically some of his lectures have been pivotal in me reshifting my relationship with what we term holidays that are actually holy days, and kind of taking more space for myself during those times, and unapologetically not conforming to my, my familial traditions around what they want to do at these times. I do what, spirit tells me, and I've had the fortune to be educated on this, what I'm supposed to be doing at this time. So, like, I don't do anything around Christmas and stuff like that. I don't celebrate Christmas. I take that time for myself, because my understanding, my knowledge tells me that it's a sacred time to do some other things. So I do that. So I had the winter solstice thing. I had an event for spring equinox a couple of weeks ago, and I said the same thing, that I'm actually showed them about 6 minutes of Dr. Brother's lecture around the energy of the equinox and the symbology of the egg and all of this different stuff. And gave them some materials to create a vision board because this is the spring, so it's time to plant seeds. And just did something like that. And so I told them, I was like, this lecture that I'm listening to from Dr. Browder has really, that I'm sharing with y'all from Dr. Browder has really shifted my relationship with holy days and how I live my life in a way that's in alignment with the natural cycles of nature.
Mm.
And so that's what my whole thing is, especially around my yoga, is creating and holding space for women to be together, to do yoga around these energies. So my next one is going to be, I'll be doing classes in between it, like some pop-up classes, but my next event is going to be for summer solstice. And I'm planning on having, God willing, two night, 3-day retreats for fall equinox and for the next winter solstice somewhere here in the tri-state. So that's my plans. But yeah, people don't know, they don't understand, and I still hold it because I believe in the energetic reality of what's happening for us at that time, whether if they know about it or not. As long as they
There's people who are wanting to know though. And I think that's the beautiful thing. There's more people who are wanting to know. They're out there. And that's kind of one of the things that motivate me as I'm still like building my following, still establishing myself, is that there's people who need to hear this information, and they need to hear it from like, people who I kind of consider normal. Because some of the times when there are like groups, I've had these conversations with friends, there are groups that are into what they call the esoteric or are traditional or occult or whatever word they want to use, knowledge. Sometimes it could kind of become like cliquey or could kind of become too intimidating. So when it's almost just like someone giving the same knowledge, but it's like more, they can kind of identify with you a little more, I feel like it's easier for them to get into it. I like that tagline, your body is the first temple and the earth is the second.
your second.
Yeah.
This is my blanket I got behind me.
Because even as even in like
I use them in my class, but it says your body is your first temple, the earth is your second.
Yeah, I like that. Because even in like 5% talk, that would be like, you your first temple and then your woman is your second. So I even like that as a double entendre.
Shay. Yeah. Earth, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What do you say to the people that have been told, like I was told, like that yoga is something evil, negative, or scary? Because the first time I heard about it, I've heard all types of wild things, like your body's gonna be left open and demons gonna jump in your body and all types of crazy stuff.
Well, it's interesting, where I live in New Jersey, it's so diverse, even, just with Black people or Pan-African people, all these people from all these different places all over the place, just being in the tri-state. And I have another yoga teacher that's a Haitian American, and she is Buddhist. And so she has a lot of Haitian relatives who have opinions about yoga and think it's a religion, and they're very Christian. And what I did with her, like, because personally, I don't know if it's because people are intimidated by the prospect of trying to challenge me on that kind of debate, because I'll probably eat them. I'm a Gemini, so I'm very, like, how I communicate is not, we really don't want to get in a debate with me about something that I feel have a conviction about.
Right.
So I just think some of my energy kind of displays that. But even when she came to me, it's like, my cousin is like, this yoga is a religion, and what am I like? What do I tell her? And I'm like, that is, that's not. It sounds, very ignorant to me. It's not true. But what I also did was I took a screenshot. I was trying to see if I could pull it up while I'm on the phone with you, of this imagery that I seen of a yoga position being done clearly by an indigenous person in an African village who had no training from nobody from India. So I sent her the screenshot. Like, can you show this to you. This is not, it's a system of moving energy in the body. It has nothing to do with a religion. Are there people who are yoga practitioners who identify as yogis in a sense that they belong to an ashram and they believe in a guru and they follow a certain guru? There are absolutely people who do that. But that doesn't mean that everybody who practices yoga is coming from that vantage point.
Right.
That spiritual tradition. They're not. So that's what I mean. That's the only thing I can tell them. If people are like that, I mean, I feel like because I'm educated in a traditional sense, and my disposition is professional, and I'm articulate and stuff like that. Like maybe people take it as I'm more of an authority to say it, and they can receive it from me maybe with a stronger sense of, okay, I can see how that's possible, but I really don't have a lot of people come up to me like that and say that. I don't know. People like to debate about things. It's interesting, and it seems like they like to debate about it. They know who to debate about it with.
Right. I'm not a big, sometimes I'm not really like a big fan of debates anymore, because I realize sometimes people want to debate, but they don't want to learn or take anything from it. But
they just want to disagree.
Right. And it's kind of like that's how
it's sport.
They're using that as a kind of like feeding their ego, And when I did more studies and stuff on the ego, I started really understanding why we were walking around and dressed like the way that we were, kind of like to balance out.
I'm gonna send you some of these. Sorry, I'm gonna send you some of these images too when we hang up.
Yeah.
But like, this is Huey P. Newton.
Never seen that image before.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you some of them. I have a few images that I've been just like archiving.
Yeah.
Based off of seeing historical figures do things that I obviously is yoga. I just seen a picture of Quincy Jones last week when he was a young man, looked like he was in his 30s. I've seen pictures of Eartha Kitt doing yoga. And then I wanted to show you the one that I have saved too. So if I don't find it before this conversation ends, I'll definitely email it to you as a screenshot.
Got you. I'll put them up in like when I'm editing the video so people can see, like they could be
exactly
things
like right in the corner or something. Yeah. Exactly. So that's what I figured you can do. But I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to say that I'm gonna
send it. Yeah. I forgot what I was saying. I completely forgot. I can move on to the because I don't remember at all. I can move on to next question though. What would you say is, because people I got this meditation hat on. People are getting into meditation, I feel like, a lot more. That's one of the trendy things, just like angel numbers that you see 24/7 that people don't seem to be scared of. What would you say the relationship between like yoga and meditation is?
So I don't consider myself a meditation expert. I do meditate. I have had a fairly consistent daily meditation practice since around March 2017. And I actually did do a meditation training with somebody at that time that helped me jumpstart a more consistent meditation practice. The first time I tried meditation, I was like, well, what is this meditation thing? I was like 21 and I went to this obscure esoteric place in this suburban white town where I was the only person who looked like myself there, and I never went back. But it was curious to me. But I guess I didn't understand what I was doing at that time or what it was for. But they, when I say they, I mean my guides, they sent me there for something. But I definitely, from my vantage point, I feel like meditation and yoga are not the same thing. I feel like you can do yoga in a meditative state. It's interesting. One of my friends who is a student of esoteric Christianity, she told me this little anecdote. I guess it's like some kind of little Asian anecdote thing or a little story. And she was like, it was two monks, and they were like having a conversation with each other, and they was like, oh, we're gonna ask, I want to ask Guru if I can meditate, if I can smoke and meditate, right? And so they both sent him a letter, and the one monk asked him, so what he said, so what did he say? And he said no. And he said, well, what did he say to you? He said, yeah. He said, well, what did you ask him? He said, the first one asked him, is it okay if I meditate, if I smoke while I meditate? And the second one asked him, if it's okay if I meditate while I smoke.
Mm.
So I don't know if anybody, if you pick up the nuance in that, but it's like you can definitely do yoga in a meditative state, but I feel like dedicating some time to cultivating a true meditative practice and stillness is a baseline or foundational thing that will help have a meditative mind and other things that you're doing, because you can be driving and have a meditative mind. You can be cooking and have a meditative mind. You can be gardening and have a meditative mind. However, actually developing a meditation practice of sitting and stillness, I feel, is a part of building up that meditative mind muscle. And it's necessary for a foundation that allows you to be meditative in these other spaces. But that's personally my perspective. Like they say, like prayer is when you speak to God, meditation when God speaks back to you. And so I definitely think it's something different. The other thing, just in ways that they are the same and complementary, is both of them increase your sense of mindfulness and intentionality. I feel like for me, the most important thing that meditation does for you is it slows your thinking. It slows your thinking so you can observe the space in between your thoughts and really be able to see more accurately or see with more clarity the origins of these thoughts. Like, where's that thought coming from? Or who gave me that thought? Is this my thought? Is this how I feel? Was I just talking to somebody about this thought? Did I hear somebody saying something in the background on the radio? Like, because a lot of times people's minds are so cluttered. They just got a constant stream of dialogue in their mind. So for me, meditation has definitely helped just create more space between my thinking. And in that way, it helps you to process more slowly, with more depth, but also to express with more intentionality, to be more responsive and less reactive. So that makes sense.
No, that was a great answer. That was a great answer. Because sometimes I would, before I, started learning about these subjects, I thought that they were like either cousins or sometimes they go hand in hand, because a lot of times the only time I'm seeing meditation, ain't nobody doing that in the hood. I'm seeing that in like a movie or something where like the rich housewife is doing meditation with some guy in the backyard. So that's my only understanding of it, and doing yoga too. So that's really my only understanding of it. And at the time, and now that I know more about it, it's like, man, I feel like everybody should know this. And that's why I'm asking these questions, because what I realized too is like, how you were saying with that relationship with like God on the inside and stuff, I realized like it's kind of like Ask Jeeves, or like that's must be what they made Siri based off, because no matter what's going on, it's like you ask the question, and once you're open to it and ready to receive the answer, it's like it'll come. It could be like, why am I doing this? Or why am I having that thought, when you're in that meditative state, and then you hear the answer and it's like, oh, and sometimes even if it's just a simple answer, but it explains so much, because I kind of look at those thoughts that you were saying, like programming, like we like a computer, and some of this software that we've been given is like malware that we got to get rid of. some of the software is good. Like, your mom taught you how to bake apple pie. That might be good software. But, your mom, the bills came in and she was acting crazy in the house. She did the best that she could, but that might not be the best software, because when the bills or something come in and life is attacking you, the best thing for you to do is kind of like get in that meditative state and get calm and relax and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's not what we do. We do the opposite. We start panicking and getting crazy. So I definitely like that answer. If
I do want to say some reflections. Just it's so important. I think that's meditation as a practice. Like, my brother goes to a very what I understand is a very strong indoctrined Christian church here in New Jersey. But from what my mother tells me is they meditate at his church. And so people, even like churches, are starting to evolve in different ways, because they realizing they're losing people, and people been doing this stuff anyway. People been going to church and doing stuff at their house that's some spiritual stuff that they don't teach and they don't give words to. They don't tell the next generation or nothing like that. Or they've been doing that. I watched a documentary. I think that Digimon did. I think it's an Amazon Prime video on Fa, which is also Ifa in his country, and showing people who been by colonizers, been converted to Christianity, but on their way home from church on Sunday, they stop at certain Orisha altar to do offering. So they live in literally both worlds.
I noticed that too.
A lady who I do some consulting with, her husband is Nigerian. He's Nigerian Muslim, but she say they both Muslim. She African American Muslim, he Nigerian Muslim, but he doing some things she never seen before because he's practicing Ifa.
It's like that doctrine is almost like it's such a new programming on our, let's say, our computer, that it hasn't even fully seeped in for everyone. When I started studying, I started looking back at some of the things I was hearing growing up, because as much as they were like religious and crazy, they think stuff like yoga is weird and evil. But then your grandparents and my mom and stuff will be telling you stories about like mermaids and just all these different type of spiritual ghosts and all this different type of stuff. And I've even lived in houses that was haunted and stuff like that. And it's like, it's kind of weird, because how are we going so deep into spirituality at one sense, and then on Sundays, like, we're so indoctrinated? It's like it hasn't really seeped in yet. Like, even when I was growing up, a lot of the older women, especially if we were in Jamaica, like, you could just see them still walking around naked, like how you see in images of us, just, kind of when they like, all right, when they were going around and painting us and going back before they started shipping us all around, you can still see people still living like that, because it hasn't fully, it's still
penetrated.
Exactly. And at the same time, like you said, they're losing people to the fact that angel numbers and yoga and meditation, the basics, or the things that are not as scary as maybe some of the other quote unquote occult stuff, they're losing people to the fact that this is becoming more prevalent against the younger generation. And
astrology, I wanted to just say, like, about these young people, like, astrology and meditation is one of the things that I wish I understood more of by the time I was 16 years old. Like, just, as some closing thoughts, because that's one of the ways that they keep younger people from being exposed to us as early as possible, is by associating these practices with a certain religion when it's not. Like, they, certain times they trying to bring it into certain schools, but then you get people who say don't bring it because that's a religion and blah, 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 and separation of church and state and stuff like that. But then they having problems with these kids who have no coping mechanisms for how to manage their emotions. They definitely need meditation and they need yoga, mostly because they helicopter parents haven't even modeled for them what appropriate emotional management and healthy emotional management looks like. And then you still want to keep them away from these different tools and modalities for self-healing. So I wish I understood anything, some level of how to still my mind before I made a decision to go to college and I wish I understood more about my intelligent design as far as my astrological chart and my cosmic, you know, what you want to call it, my cosmic fingerprint, because that's an aspect of self-mastery. And meditation and yoga is also are complementary tools into self-mastery, because you become more in tune with your mind, more in tune with your body, and more control of your emotions. So the less people can manipulate you, the more you can stay grounded and centered in your own energetic field, the better off you're going to be for the entire trajectory of your life. Certain things I get upset about that, I'm finding out in my 30s. I'm like, why didn't, even as an African American studies major, like, and I went to Rutgers University in Newark, sometimes I find out about different historical figures or different things that happened. I'm like, why didn't I find this out when I was in college? So just my closing thoughts to kind of like go back to like young people and in the value of these practices, I guess, in your lifestyle, modeled by people that look like you, who you can relate to, but just in general as a knowledge base.
I like that. I like that answer. I feel like anyone who's like new into this, they'll definitely be able to watch this. And you dropped a lot of jewels and a lot of gems for and I love the way you explained it, because it was for the beginner level, as well as some of the terminology and things that you start to touch into that will be more like esoteric or more out there, quote unquote. But I like how you didn't make it just somebody's listening and just like Maya, this, that. It's like all these, it's something that someone's actually going to be able to understand while still having the correct way of doing it. So I definitely think, because I learned a lot from watching this. Now I have a greater understanding of like what yoga and stuff is actually from watching. Because the only thing I was familiar with is I've watched a couple lectures on the tantric and the kundalini and some of the benefits and techniques and stuff on that.
People
but
get
I've
into
never
that quick, right? Because they like sex. People get into that one quick because they like sex.
Right. But so I've never actually even like studied it to the point of trying it or nothing like that. But I just watched a couple lectures on it because I was already watching it from a particular lecturer. So I've never but I didn't even like the fact that you said that there's different kinds. Like I heard them say tantra and kundalini, but I never knew there was a yin or a yang or anything like that. So this is all very important, because like you said, there might be a certain kind of yoga for every single person, but that energy work is definitely important. Because I realize, it's kind of like, it's a shame that we don't deal with spirituality as much, because that seems to be what you're supposed to just deal with first. It's like everything else just kind of takes care of itself afterwards. And that's why it's so important to be in our spiritual practice, like no matter what system you under, whether you more Ifa, you want to be under the Kemetic system, whatever it might be, just whatever resonates with you based on your Akashic or genealogy or ancestry or whatever. Just find one and kind of get with it. And
exactly.
Yeah,
it's just an entry point. You get obsessed with, which one do I do first? And that becomes paralytic, and it keeps you from stepping into your purpose, your passions, and I feel like delaying your blessings, because obviously it's blessings here for us all to receive, as long as we align ourselves for their reception. And so when we get caught up in this mental static and all these distractions of perfection, and it just becomes paralytic. So just do something for your body that looks interesting and looks fun, and everything doesn't have to be overly serious or a lifetime commitment. You just try something and observe how you starting to feel on the inside, and if you don't like that, then try something different.
Right. Because when I got started,
you don't like that teacher, try a different teacher. You got to try different.
Exactly.
People get caught up in not doing their work because they're not with the right person to do the work with. You better still do your work. Find a different yoga teacher, find a different therapist.
That's exactly what it is. The teacher, there's a lot of people who are they're taking on that like Christ role of follow me, instead of saying like to leading you to get to where you need to be. They're supposed to just give you tools, just it ain't about what I'm doing. It's just about the tools. So it's like I could be like whatever, like, aside from being like a bad person, it's like whatever. I've had teachers and stuff where you after the lecture, there was people in the audience, they were confused that they were about to go buy like lottery tickets or something. And he's like, I'm just here to give you this information. It's like, you ain't supposed to be, if you don't rock with lottery tickets, you ain't supposed to be worshiping me. But we still holding on to that too when we join these things. We thinking that we under like a certain priest or something, that you're supposed to be following them like the pastor. And it's like, nah, they just hear that it's like in the movies with the kung fu guys, like you go to the master, but then you might have to go to another master if you want to learn some new moves and get like a new black belt or something. Unless you want to just stay at that level, it's all up to you. But either way, they're supposed to be giving you your own tools. And I think that's what's really important for people to understand.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to learn that lesson the hard way.
Have to have their third eye open in their crown connected, because don't follow nobody, bro. Follow yourself. Follow your intuition, because all of these, even some of these yoga gurus, Indian yoga gurus, have been, in this Me Too stuff. So don't get caught up in none of that. Don't think anybody of any religious or spiritual background is vulnerable to be infallible, especially when they get too many people under them who are treating them like they are a messiah, or like they have information or access to something that their students don't have. So, sometimes people might think, oh, I'm over the church or the Catholic Church, and I'm this, I'm that, blah, blah, blah. And they go on to something else that's just as crazy in a different outfit.
Yeah. They just switch hats. Just switch hats. And it's about transformation. It's about transforming yourself, becoming a new person and stuff like that. It ain't about just, the dressing up and the clothes and the terminology and all of that. That is cool too. That's a part of the culture, but that's not what it's all about. It's not just putting on, changing your clothes. It's like you want to change internally. You want to be a whole new person. It's like changing for the better, finding out what you're supposed to be doing, what you're here to do, whatever that might be. And if a teacher ain't like, recommending books or videos or whatever, or work, like something to help you, then that's not even a teacher. That's just somebody who's leading you. And yeah, ain't nobody supposed to be leading you but yourself. The same divine that's inside of that teacher is inside of you too. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's all I want to do, is just lead people back to themselves, help them get more connected with themselves.
Right.
Because people got, like, I got my own garden to tend and to till and to weed, and I'm not here to do that for nobody else. And people who pretend like they are, you probably should go a different direction.
Right. But I to wrap it up, I appreciate you taking the time to do this interview. This is definitely a lot of fun. This was definitely very informative for me. Anybody who watches this video in the future, that they come back to my page, or anybody who searches about yoga and stuff and they keep clicking until they find some Black people, they definitely gonna learn a lot, because I learned a lot. I appreciate the way that you broke it down, and your energy, your teaching style. Only thing else is like just for you to, any type of advertisement or how they can find you or anything like that. Anything you got coming up?
So my social media is on Instagram at ecoempress.co. That's also my TikTok, and you can find me on Facebook that way too, even though I'm less active on Facebook and TikTok. I also have a Twitter account at ecoempressco. My email address is nicole@ecoempress.co, and I also have a phone number that you can text, which is 973-780-4609. And you can go on my website, www.ecoempress.co. So that's how you can find all of my information if you want to get in touch with me. As far as upcoming events, I don't have the flyer out yet, but I'm having a like a pop-up Mother's Day class at a yoga studio in Maplewood, New Jersey called Shakti Yoga and Healing Arts. So that's going to be on Thursday, May 5th. I'm going to do a 90-minute Mother's Day class, which is going to be yin yoga and yoga nidra. So it's going to start off with some movement, and then towards the end, it's going to be a guided meditation. So that's a 90-minute class, and it'll be $30. And then, just stay tuned on my social media for upcoming events. Like I said, I have already in my calendar events that are going to be scheduled around the solstices and equinox. So I'll usually have my tickets available at least 1 month ahead of time. Hopefully for these retreats in the fall and in the winter, I'll have those that information out at least 8 weeks ahead of time.
All right, that sounds good. Do you offer like virtual or any like one-on-one sessions or anything like that someone might be interested in?
Virtual one-on-one sessions for yin yoga, only for one person generally, and also for yoga nidra. I prefer to teach in person and generally for yin yoga, because that's the one where I'm bringing people into poses, and I like to be able to help them by setting up their props to make sure that they're in a comfortable position so that they can hold the pose for 3 to 5 minutes. Doesn't mean that I won't work with a person one-on-one in that style. It just gets more complicated when you got more than one person there, because you have to interrupt everybody in the whole class to give one person instructions. So it's a little bit of a quieter, low-key class. I will tell you just real quick, one of the things people like the most about my classes, the in-person classes, my yin classes, is my music, because I'm unapologetically for the culture. So my music is never anything that is traditional yoga setting music. I play anything from, let's call it to the internet, to John Coltrane, to all different kinds of things. I play, Cuban jazz sometimes, all different kinds of stuff. I just fuse it. It might be music in there that's 100 years apart. Because if it's something that's a John Coltrane song, and then, and then I might use the instrumental from Quiet Storm by Mobb Deep. But but that's how I do. I use a lot of hip hop instrumentals. So in my playlist. So people like it. They love it.
I tell people that the best thing, because one of the teachers I listen to, Bobby Hemmett, he always talks about making up your own rituals. And it's like one of the best things I realized, and that's how you get with your intuition. It's like we thinking that we have to necessarily listen to 937 hertz or whatever it might be all the time. And even though that is healing, don't get me wrong, but if you resonate with Quiet Storm, like sometimes I'll get an idea for a video, and it's like you just walk around the house or you're just driving and you rapping along to something, and then it's like boom, it pops in your head. But what you did, you're rapping, you distracting yourself from all the noise, like how you talked about that, you still slipping into that meditation. Now the intuition is like you don't shut up, so the intuition could come through. And we don't always have to be, it's like this is good, this is necessary. Oh, you can't see my hands, like this is necessary. We don't always have to do that to get the same results, or we don't always have to be to get that healing.
I'm a big hip hop head, so right. I'm not going to tell. I heard I wish I can't find this video at all, but I was watching this video maybe 3 years ago. This white woman, I was still listening to hip hop at that time, but this white woman said, from her vantage point, she was saying hip hop has the strongest root chakra frequency of any style of music. And I took that and I ran with it. I make abundance playlists to get myself in a frequency of getting my money, and getting focused. And I don't care what it say. And it could be terminology in it that's maybe some people consider to be disrespectful. But if I know my God self, then I can receive it and take from it what I need to and leave the rest. I don't have to.
See, she's talking right there. Anybody listening, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. That's when you quote unquote becoming a God, when you listening to something and it's like it could have a bad word or something and you start flipping the script on it. in your mind, it's like they're saying something different. It's like that's a lot. That's some powerful stuff to do. You know, when people
Exactly.
hear the
I
word
listen to
plow pose,
bands that make her dance. I ain't never
right?
been on nobody pole. But guess what?
Exactly.
When I want to grind and I want to be self-employed and I want to be self-directed and I want to be financially autonomous, bands will make me dance. So get up off my ass and move and do the things I need to execute on.
See, she's talking right there. See, I have my 888 playlist too, and I think that's in there. And I ain't no stripper either, or I haven't been to the strip club in a long time. So it's like it just I hear the bands in my mind. I start visualizing money. I start visualizing being in a nice car or something, and then that's the motivation. That's helping me with my visualization skills. I start feeling like I'm in that rap
being at my desk, delegating.
Right. So that's key. That's a big key right there for sure. A lot of people don't realize how simple it is just doing stuff like that, making a little playlist. Like one of the last videos I made was about reprogramming yourself through music. Like make a playlist that could be like, yo, you're beautiful. If you ain't ready to tell yourself that, but you keep hearing it so much, it seeps into your subconscious. Now you walking around, and then now you might start saying it, you're gonna start feeling it. You know, we might have to do stuff like that. You know, everything is a tool. You know, it's either you gonna use it or it's gonna use you. That's kind of how I look at it. You know, so
absolutely. That's everything. Food, exercise, anything.
So I love that answer.
Things.
I love this conversation. You know, it's rare that you get to talk to people who have this kind of understanding. It's like especially with the terminology and the words and just not really having an ego about it. It's definitely rare. So I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm trying to get into this more. I definitely would like to connect to work again on something.